There are a lot of decisions that you have to make before you start dental school. Whenever you're accepted to that first school, there's this crazy excitement and you have that feeling that I'm going to be a dentist and it's finally, the dream has finally come true, and you have that euphoria for a few weeks. Then for a lot of you, you have some questions to answer. And the biggest of these questions, the one that is most important and will most affect your future, is which school should you go to? Also, by the way, this is in fact a video about dentistry. I'm out here on my winter break in Tennessee, just having a little bit of a good time, making a fire and doing some work up here in the hills. But I figured this would be an appropriate and different place to start a video. But since I'm unable to effectively cover this entire topic while I'm out here on the farm, let's actually get back to civilization, and I'll talk about this topic of picking the right dental school. All right, good to be home. So how do you pick a dental school? This is actually a topic that I've discussed on the channel before, and I'll link that video right here if you want to see some of my thoughts about the same topic from last year. But this is really an important question that I think a lot of you who are currently applying and going through the cycle right now or in the future are probably juggling. For some people like me, there's a dental school that you're sort of destined to go to, or one that you've been thinking you'll be at your entire life. Maybe it's right down the road, or a family member went there, or whatever. But for a lot of you, there might be 10, 15, 20 schools on your list, and you applied to all of them for various reasons, and then you get some acceptances and you have to actually decide which one you want to go to. And some of you may have a dream school. If I get in here, I'm going no matter what else happens in my application process. But there are probably a few of you, once again, that have a big list of schools, and you're having to make this difficult decision about where to spend the next 4 years of your dental education. Now, I think this is really, really important. The choice on where to go to dental school is very, very important, and it has absolutely everything to do with the first bullet point that I want to talk about here, which is the cost of attendance of dental school. Now, this topic of cost of attendance, how much it actually costs to go to dental school, is something that I'm very interested in. It's something that I want to get into more as the years progress here, as I get a little bit more comfortable in my position in dental school and I can actually talk about certain things like this. The cost of attendance, it's a major, major topic. So many people out there are juggling with this thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, and a lot of people are deciding dentistry or no dentistry just because of the cost of attendance of dental schools, which is ever rising. Don't get it twisted. The number one most important aspect on where you should go to dental school is the cost of attendance. And this is something that I have really, as of recently, found to be an absolute fact. There might be those out there who debate this, but I think this is very, very true. The financial burden of dental school is great, and it's something that can be overcome with smart decisions, especially in the first 5 to 10 years of your career as a practicing dentist. But ultimately, this should be the first thing that you consider when you're picking between a big list of schools. Now, the person that made this so clear in my mind was Dr. Jim Daly. And let's see here, I've got the book here. So this is the White Coat Investor's Guide for students, dental students, medical students, just anyone who's going into one of these professional programs and is looking at spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete their education. And a few chapters in here, I think it's chapter 3 if I remember correctly, Dr. Daly actually directly addresses how to choose a medical or dental school. So what's the bottom line here? Well, it's very simple. If you're talented enough to be accepted at multiple dental or medical schools, do yourself a favor and attend the one that will cost you the least. This is a quote that stuck with me, and ultimately, I didn't choose my dental school, the University of Tennessee, because of money directly, but I did get in-state tuition at UT, which was a major, major factor in my decision. If I was an out-of-state student, I think I'd be paying, I think it's somewhere around an extra $39,000 a year, which is just insane on top of the already ridiculously inflated number that I'm paying every year. So this makes a lot of sense when you start to think about it. And as Dr. Daly describes as he continues forward in this book, the money that you have in debt in your first 5, 10, 15 years of your practice and how you approach paying that money off is going to really impact your financial status as a doctor for the rest of your life. So making smart decisions on how you handle your debt as a young practicing doctor are going to greatly affect the way that you live your old retirement life or the way that your kids proceed through college and all of those things. So this is really important stuff, and it all begins with the school that you choose, trying to find the cheapest school ultimately. But if you're not convinced by this cost topic, let me present to you two scenarios, or two schools to be more specific. One of these schools is the big name, fancy, prestigious school, and it costs $400,000 to go there. The other school is a small, basically unknown school that isn't gonna have a big brand name with a football team down the street and a bunch of name recognition, but it costs $280,000 to attend. School A, the school with the big name and the football team, it looks great on paper. It's really something you could put in your Instagram bio, and you could tell your family when you go home on Thanksgiving that you're at this big prestigious school, and you might think that future employers, once you graduate, are gonna look at this thing and say, wow, they went to this really nice and well-known school. School B, on the other hand, as you might think, is not as well known. So you might think that maybe the teachers there aren't as qualified and I won't get as good of an education, and future employees are gonna see this and say he or she didn't go to a really prestigious school, and so there's all of these things going on here. But here's the bottom line. What is School A going to get you objectively by the end of your 4 years? Well, hopefully it gives you a diploma and a license to practice dentistry in whichever state you choose. What is School B going to give you after your 4 years of education there? Well, ultimately, hopefully it's going to be a diploma and a license to practice dentistry in the state of your choosing. In other words, the outcome of both schools is absolutely identical. The outcome of going to School A is exactly the same as going to School B, because ultimately the outcome of going to dental school is to become licensed to practice dentistry. Of course, you have to become educated. You have to learn how to do the dentistry. You have to learn the human body, how to prescribe medication, how to treat systemic illnesses. But ultimately, what you're trying to do from like a logistical standpoint is get a diploma and get a license to practice. A lot of the education in actually clinical dentistry is going to come for you and I after we graduate and we get out into the real world and start working. So all of this is to say that choosing School B and paying much less for your education is going to have a massive, massive impact on your future compared to choosing School A for the name brand. So as Dr. Dolly would say, choose the cheapest school. All right, what's next? The next thing that I think is important to consider when you're choosing a dental school is the location. Everyone is going to be different with this. I am kind of a homebody. I enjoy being home or near home here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I always have been. So for me, it made a lot of sense to only go 3 hours down the road to school in Memphis, but for you, it might be different. The location of your school is going to be important for a couple of reasons. One, this is going to be the place that you live for 4 years, and so if that's super far away from home and that's a problem for you, maybe you need to consider that. Or if you're someone who wants to get away and get to a new place, that might be a positive thing for you. But the other important aspect of the location of your school is actually the patient pool. So the group of people that you're gonna be working on in your final 2 years of dental school in the clinic, that patient pool is gonna come from this place, wherever your dental school is located. So make sure that you're ready, willing, and open to practice in a certain place for 2 years and to work with the people of that place. That shouldn't be a problem for anybody, but ultimately that's something that you should consider when you're considering this location discussion. And the other thing, of course, is what can you do on the weekends? Where can you and your friends go to have fun? Just little things like that. Is it in a city? Do you like that city? Are there cool bars and breweries and things to do on the weekends when you have a little bit of time away from studying? Are you someone who likes to be outdoors? Is there an outdoor presence or scene in this area? These are all things that you can consider, and ultimately I feel good about each of you approaching this discussion and this topic because you all picked a school for undergrad for various reasons, so you've probably been through this process already. The next point that I wanted to mention was just the actual school itself and what is available there. Really the main things that I think are covered in this topic are the residency options that are available at your school, and then also the actual on-campus activities, both clinical and in the classroom. This was actually very well described by my fellow dental student Jasmine Ahrar in the 14th episode of my podcast, the Teeth Time podcast, where she basically explained it like this.
So the specialty rotations I was talking about, they're not specialty programs.
Okay.
So there's no residence in those programs. We do have an ortho residency program and an AEGD, but those are like across the parking lot. So these internal rotations under the specialties, they're for us. which is
awesome.
really great.
Yeah.
So it's there'll be the faculty and then us D3s and D4s rotating through, and like so D3s and D4s are doing extractions and root canals, and I don't think we place implants, but
okay. Are the professors in those rotations specialists, or are they general dentists?
Yes, they
Okay.
are specialists.
So definitely think about the broad sense of your career and what you're thinking you might want to do, and definitely take that into consideration when you choose a school. Having residency programs or sort of residency clinical courses built into your school might be something that's really wonderful for you to have, especially if you're thinking about specializing in the future. Now, the fourth and final thing that I want to talk about in this video is the student experience, and there are a couple of ways to understand the student experience at each individual school. Nowadays, really, you could kind of find someone who goes to the school that you're interested in and just shoot them a DM on Instagram. I know that I'm personally horrible at responding to DMs on Instagram, so if you're someone who's reached out to me there, I'm sorry if I haven't responded yet. But this is a good way to just ask a couple simple questions about their school. Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? What are some things that you like about it? What are some things that you maybe don't like? But also the biggest and best way to understand the student experience is when you go into your interviews at the various schools, hopefully they're in person, make sure that you use the time with the dental students who are present. You use that time wisely, because there's gonna be a point in your interview when there's a couple dental students hanging out, sitting around. Spark up a conversation with them and just kind of ask them some very basic questions that only a student would feel comfortable answering. Like, what do you guys do on the weekends? Where are some of your favorite spots to go? Where do you live? What is the area like? Just things like this. And then also too, questions like, what are the professors like in your first 2 years? Some of the science teachers, are they easy? Are they hard? Some of these things. Just try to understand the student experience, what you're gonna be getting when you go there, a little bit better by talking to the actual students who are there. I know that if I was sitting around in our student lounge and there were a couple prospective pre-dental students that were there for their interview asking me questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So definitely do that when you're on your interview, and just try to understand what students go through a little bit more, and that will help inform your decision here when you're trying to pick a dental school. Friends, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I know that's kind of a lot, but hopefully this decision of picking a dental school isn't too hard for you. I know that there are probably a bunch of you out there that have, maybe 2 or 3 that you're picking from. So best of luck. Hopefully you can consider these things that I've talked about today, and hopefully they help kind of guide you as you think about making this massive decision that will affect the rest of your life, I think, in a certain sense. Once again, really the most important thing is trying to find the cheapest dental school. I think that's super important. It's gonna help you so much as you navigate the financial waters of your future, as you try to build a retirement and search for that Joel Myerson 30s retirement, which I think is probably elusive for many. But best of luck in this process, and as I always say, you can let me know if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to help. All right, friends, I enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. And as I always say at the end of my, okay, I screwed that up. And as I always say at the end of my videos, I will see you in the next one.